Dadhood. Modern Dadhood podcast.
Wow. Wow. As the great philosopher, you know the name, say it.
Are we talking about Plato?
That's right. As the great Plato once said, wow. Because you know what he means too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like wow, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, friends, you're listening to Modern Dadhood, an ongoing conversation about the joys, challenges, and general insanity of being a dad in this moment. Mark, check it, my friend.
Yep, that's
I don't
me.
want to ask, but I gotta ask. How are you doing? And don't sugarcoat it. But also don't be fully honest with me about it.
I am rattled to my core.
Yeah. Fire hose, huh?
Yeah.
A fire hose of diarrhea.
Well,
Just
not that exactly.
unapologetically choking us out.
Yeah, basically.
That's what's happening right now. No matter what side people are on, there's some very heavy stuff happening in the world. And look, I'll frame it like this. I'll position it like this. I don't really know how exactly to talk about it with my kids.
Oh my God.
Have you had discussions about it?
No. With some of the stuff that's going on, I don't want them to know about it at all. And I don't know. It's too, as much as I want to be able to have my kids understand that the world is sort of filled with injustice and turmoil for certain groups, and that as people, we should always advocate for helping people, whatever that looks like. And what's happening right now feels very much not that. There are good lessons to learn, but at the same time, I don't know that I have the heart at the moment to really get into it with them. I'd rather them not know what's going on right now. Is that bad?
I don't think so. I know that I am just really, really burnt out from feeling so angry and sad and helpless all the time. We could have a whole episode on this if we wanted to. I'm not sure that's what our listeners want, but
probably not.
I did want to just recognize that things are heavy right now, and hopefully Modern Dadhood is a place that dads and moms can come for some lightness.
Yeah.
So to that end, would you like to tell everybody who you are? Like deep in your core?
I can try. My name is Mark Checkett, and I am a dad to twin boys who are going to be turning 8 years old in 16 days from now. 16 days from now. Going to be huge. I think we're going to do a sleepover. What about you?
My name's Adam Flaherty, and my two girls are now, well, we're in between their birthdays. They're both winter babies. They are now 12 and 8, but almost 9. And we hosted a sleepover this past weekend, and the girls stayed up basically all night.
Wow.
It's like basically an all-nighter.
Heck,
it was like 5 or 6 a.m. that that some of them fell asleep. Nice. And we let it happen. My daughter was wrecked the next day, but like she wanted to do it, and we let it happen.
What was it? Movies? Was it board games? Was it like what did they do?
It was dancing and laughing and games and TV shows and movies and talking.
Man. How great!
All of it. Yeah.
How great is that?
Modern Dadhood, though, Mark.
Yeah, is
for listeners.
Show.
Hey, welcome back. If this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. We hope you like what you hear. We don't usually go as deep as we did briefly in that opening. But listen, Mark and I are not parenting experts. We're just two guys who love to talk about fatherhood and learn from people who are smarter about it than we are, so that you can learn and can become better, more present, more informed dads. All episodes are available on your favorite podcast platform or at moderndadhood.com, where you can search by topic or by guest name. We've had some great guests, and leave us a review if you like what you hear. But either way, we're glad you're here. Today's episode is a fun one, Mark. Why?
Because we have a fantastic guest by the name of Shannon Carpenter, who is a dad, a 3-time dad. He has 3 kids, but he's an author, and he is an at-home dad, and he advocates for other at-home dads who choose the path of staying at home with their kids and being a primary caregiver. And he's got a book called The Ultimate Stay-at-Home Dad. Recommend to all of our listeners. And I think we're going to be talking about that a little bit with him. I first heard him on a radio program called The 1A, which I believe in the same episode, though different segments, former guest and friend of the show Modern Dadhood, Vivek Murthy, was also interviewed in that episode. And you all might know him as the 2-time serving Surgeon General of the United States. But I heard Shannon on that show, and he just made a lot of sense to me, and his interview stuck out to me. So I'm really excited to talk to him today.
We're really dipping into NPR programming for our guest recruiting, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, it's a treasure trove of information and good people.
And Shannon Carpenter, no doubt, is going to be one of those good people, and we'll be catching up with him in a couple minutes here. Mark, was there a time when the boys were really young when you and Jamie had a legitimate conversation about, finances and daycare expenses and like really thought earnestly about whether it would make sense for one of you to stay home?
Oh, man. I got to reach back into the memory banks. I purge a lot from my memory. Like, I can only hold on to so much, and so I will just kind of...
Before you empty the trash can?
Sometimes I just power down at night and just purge all the cash, Well, I don't know that we ever talked really seriously about either of us actually staying home to sort of off. I think it was on the periphery of some of our conversations, but it was never like neither of us ever really thought that's a viable way for us to move forward. It was also a weird time because it was right around pandemic time. But our conversations really were about taking them and putting them into daycare versus bringing a nanny into our home.
Oh, yeah.
And at first our conversations were like, oh, we're not nanny people because that's like a rich person thing. But then when we kind of crunched in the numbers for how much like daycare cost, it really, for the 2 kids, it really wasn't that big of a difference for us from a financial standpoint. So anyway, that a lot of our conversation was around that. And we eventually landed on nanny, and they had a nanny for the first little while before we eventually put them into daycare. What about you guys? Did you guys ever talk about it?
When we were running all the numbers for daycare and, especially before we had our second daughter, we were thinking about, well, can we afford daycare if we have another kid? There were definitely conversations about it. Yeah. You look at your salaries, your income, and you're like, well, we're going to basically, I'm basically working to put my kids in daycare. So why don't I just not work and be the caretaker?
Did you specifically think about that? Meaning like not Sarah, but you talked about you doing it? I
don't think that was really a viable, I don't think it's something that I wanted to do. I guess entrepreneur in me is always just cranking on ideas and trying to bring in new work. And so I think it would have been really tough for me. It's a very romantic notion, but I think it would be really hard for me to 100% of the time just be present with my kids and not doing other things that get me excited and make me fulfilled.
I think I could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I don't know that I would have said that at the beginning. I mean, at the beginning, I'm kind of terrified like I don't know how to do any of this, was kind of the general thought in my brain most of the time. But now the idea of kind of like running the household and being a primary caretaker is appealing to me in a lot of ways. But there are times where it's like Jamie's, like just this weekend, Jamie's been gone for several days since last week. So it was just me and the boys for several days. And you kind of slip into like, or at least me kind of slip into like a groove, like a routine, of, you empty the dishwasher while they're eating their breakfast, and then you clean a little bit up and you fill everything back up and you get snacks ready, and you just kind of get into this routine. And there's something really satisfying about like getting through one part of the routine instead of checking that box and moving on to the next thing. Yeah. I don't know what it would be like though, obviously full time.
See, I'm cool with a routine and having a list of things to do and get satisfaction out of crossing things off of a list. But I think where I start to go a little nuts is when the routine feels the same every day. Yeah. And there's no sort of break from that.
Yeah. Actually,
be curious to hear what Shannon has to say about those early days.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Actually, there is a part in his book where he gets into, and maybe we can talk about it when he joins us, but where he talks about suddenly feeling as if, okay, it's the same now, over and over and over again, and what that kind of does mentally to you.
Well, he's here.
Well, speak the dev, Shannon Carpenter is a dad to 3 kids, has been a stay-at-home dad since 2008. He's also a writer, a humor-trained writer from the very famous Second City. I'm sure some of our listeners will be familiar with that, writing things from social satire and parenting essays, and is the author of a book called The Ultimate Stay-at-Home Dad. Shannon, thank you so much for joining us on Modern Dadhood today.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Our pleasure.
Yeah.
So 3 kids, and you just shared with us before we were rolling that the oldest is about to turn 20.
Yeah.
So what are the other ages? What's the kind of age span?
So my 20-year-old daughter is a sophomore in college, which freaks me out. And then my son just turned 18 a couple months ago. And then my youngest is 12, and he's about to turn 13. So I've been a stay-at-home dad since they were born, and I've done the full realm of everything now. And that's where we're at.
Man. Yeah. 20 that's, can we say adult? That's an adult.
Oh yeah.
No,
they're adult, man. I mean, when I dropped her off for college, I told her, or when she turned 18 even, I said, I'm not really your parent anymore. I'm your guide. Things change at that age. It's like, I can't tell you what to do, but I can help you through it. And it was a big deal that as my kids got older, I never felt alone when they reached that adulthood. And I had the same talk with my son.
My 2 daughters, Shannon, are 12 and almost 9, and people keep saying to me like, "Oh, you're like in for it. Things are about to change in a big way," and that we're very close, but like there's going to be a period of time where they dislike me. And I'm curious about your experience. Did you go through like a rough period, or is that really just like totally individual to the kid and the family?
It really is individual to the kid or the family, but, with parenting, with the fatherhood angle, it's just parenting differently. It's a new stage, so you have to change the way you parent. With the teenagers, they're coming into their hormones and they don't know how to express emotions and feelings, and there's anger and doubt and all those things. And you got to recognize that and then change how you actually parent. With my daughter and my son, and I'm doing it with my youngest son, the biggest thing is communication, right? But how do you get a 13, 14, 15-year-old to talk? And the trick that I have found is that you involve yourselves in their lives and their hobbies, no matter what it is, and create a space where you two can just exist with each other, right? There's no judgment. There's no expectation. And eventually they start opening up to you. So with my daughter, she was big into sewing. So I learned to sew. I can work a sewing machine and I can work a table saw. So, nice. They both work out. But we also started watching scary movies. She really got into scary movies. So every day after school, when she was in high school, before the others got home, we would watch some of a scary movie. And eventually she'd just tell me what's going on in her life. Now with my son, kind of the same thing. His emotions are different than my daughter. My daughter is more self-reflective and internalizes blame, or my son is very quiet, right? And eventually sometimes the anger may get to him. And it's something I understand myself as a young man at one point in time, many years ago. And so we do archery together. And believe it or not, he helps me a lot with my writing. We talk about books and what I'm writing next. He's a great resource. And with my youngest, we collect vinyl. Oh, and I have a turtle. We do a turtle with him too. So that's everything that I do.
Nice.
But it's creating that space where you can exist with no pressure, and then they just open up. It's not harder. It's just different. The work you have to do is more emotional than physical. That's it.
I'm just curious. So you said something along the lines of that, like, different stages your kids go through, you sort of enter like different stages of parenting. And so now you've got a few kids that are a little bit, it's not a crazy age range, but you have, a daughter that's gone through certain ages. So as she goes, let's say from 12 to 13 to 14, and then your son a couple years later goes from 12 to 13 to 14. Did the phase of parenting that you needed to enter into for your daughter at that time, was it the same phase that you had to enter into for your son? Or did you find yourself also then, when your son came through that age range, that was yet another new kind of phase of parenting that you had to navigate?
It really was, and it still is with my youngest. Each kid is different with their own behaviors. And even though you raise them in the same household and you try to raise them the same way. And so you have to basically reinvent yourself over and over and over again. And it's not a bad thing. Change is good. It's frustrating at times. But that's why we go to the gym, and that's why we lift the weights.
Yes.
So I would love to hear, can you tell us a little bit about your story of how you and your wife, came to this decision that you were going to be the stay-at-home dad? And I'm sure, with having written your book, you've probably told this many times, so feel free to give us like the condensed version of it. But, it's something that I guess challenges some gender norms. People don't typically think of the dad, if there is going to be a partner that stays home with the kids while the other works. People don't typically think of the father in that role. I think it's amazing, and would love to hear how your family, came to this arrangement.
So I will give you guys the first ever secret answer. And in my next book, we'll have more of it in it. But at the time, I was working, I was investigating elder abuse for the state of Texas, right? And I had my unit, and we would go out and investigate those crimes and those situations and fix them. And then I had my daughter, and then my whole world changed. I did not expect it to. I thought it would just be going on. And so after a year of putting her in daycare and going to work every morning at 7 and picking her up at 6:30, my wife and I got in a rut. And we were pregnant with my second. And I was like, is this all we're doing? I get an hour with my daughter. And so we talked about it one night, and we said, well, someone should stay at home. And I jokingly said it should be me. Now, as soon as I said it, I knew it was true. There's for a couple reasons. So my wife is in advertising, right? It's the whole Mr. Mom Tuner Schooner thing. Like, I totally recognize the connection between that movie and my life. Even though I hate the term Mr. Mom, I got to give Michael Keaton credit. But as soon as I said it, her career trajectory was higher than mine. And so that's the easy answer, that it was a money decision, right? That we could afford better. But that's not true. I realized as soon as I said it that I wanted it to be me. Like, I didn't want it to be anybody else. And I thought to myself, oh my God, can I do this? Do I actually have this opportunity? Because I'd never, not once, ever considered it. And after finding some guys online, and back then in 2008, there wasn't many of us, I thought, no, I want to do this. I want to give my kids that mythical home that they can remember when they grow up. And that's what I did. That's how it actually happened. That's the answer, the emotional part of that answer I never give. But with you guys, yeah, that's 100%. It had to be me. I wanted it to be me.
Just thinking about that you said it on sort of an off the cuff, almost like funny kind of way, but for you, it clicked and felt true and felt like this real thing. When your wife heard it at that time, did she have like a takeaway, at that moment where like it felt like the right thing to do for her? Or was that a thing that she kind of came back around to later after you actually started discussing it for real?
No, at that moment, that was the real conversation. Like the whole conversation took only 10 minutes. It was not a long discussion for us to do this, right?
Oh, wow.
She looked at me and said, yeah, it should be you. And that was it.
Wow.
And I was thinking, wow, now I'll tell some of the funny parts of it. The truth of it is I always knew my wife would be garbage staying home. I knew it. Like when she was on maternity leave, right? I would get home and she's still in her robe and she's got a little circle of comfort around her that's just trashed and she's going just bonkers. She was not built for this. And she'll tell you the same thing, right? Whereas me, I'm a lot more extroverted and assertive, and I am totally okay with making my own world. And so in that 10-minute talk, we just knew that was going to happen. And then I ran the numbers and she was being recruited. And I said, if we save on daycare, which is, a lot of money, and, don't spend as much, and I'm not, spending money on food or gas, you only need to make 5 to 10 more thousand more. And that's what happened, and then they moved us up to Kansas City. And I'll tell you, my first stint as a stay-at-home dad, the way it really happened. So she came to Kansas City day one when I was a stay-at-home dad. And I was alone by myself with a 1-year-old and a newborn for 30 days. That was my introduction to being a stay-at-home dad. It was trial by fire, man. It was great. I know.
Yeah. Both feet, just jump in. Yeah, there's no chance to even question or second guess if that's the situation that you're in.
Yeah, there's no thought whatsoever. You just at the time. Yeah.
I mean, as somebody who's an extrovert, that must have been really challenging in some ways. Obviously you can become very isolated when you have young kids and you're the primary caretaker. So how did you handle that?
And this isolation is something I know you guys have talked about on your podcast before. And I love those discussions as an expertise of mine, I think now, because in the beginning, we moved to a new city. We left our old city, moved to a new city, and I had no one. And I tried to join mothers groups. And this is 2008. There wasn't much available at the time. And I was just going bonkers. And my wife came home after about 3 months. I just went off, on whatever boring thing I was doing. Like, I made sandwiches today or whatever. And she said, you need to find friends. I was like, I'm trying, this is really hard. And this is where I got lucky. There was a Yahoo group of stay-at-home dads in Kansas City, and I didn't know at the time, but they were one of the founders of the National At-Home Dad Network, the big thing. And so they were on the downswing, and I showed up to meet some of them. It was just me and 2 other guys. And from that, we built this big, huge dad group that was involved in everything. And so the core group of that group is 5 dads. There's 5 of us. And we are still friends after 18 years. We are best friends. Wow. And I've raised 16 kids with those guys. Yeah, they listen to my podcast and my interviews, and then they give me crap about it. And they tell me what I should have done better. That is how I fought. Yeah, dude, fighting isolation, it's not the physical work of being a parent that kills me. It's the mental work. That's what breaks the caregiver in me, especially when you're isolated. And as time went on, luckily now, I know you guys have talked about some of this, there are so many more groups for men and fathers to join to break that isolation. And I think I was listening to another one, where do you find friends, right? Where do you find friends? And there's a bunch of places now. There are a bunch of places now. From I think the group All Parents Welcome, which is part of Fatherhood together, and City Dads. They merged under a guy named Kevin Selden. So that's just for primary or for non-birthing parents, as he calls it. There's online communities. There's gaming communities. I follow a guy named the Kill Pete strategy. Right, he's a grandmaster in Risk, of all things. Oh, but wow. In those groups, you find your community, either online or everything else. And that's just off the top of my head. Like, you give me an hour, I give you a lot more. But that's how you fight the isolation, because it is a killer for parents and for fathers, a lot, whether you're working or not.
Well, and online communities are certainly great and sounds like a real savior for you in those early days. But also, you got to get out of the house and connect with people in real life too, you know?
The funny thing is with me, they call us stay-at-home dads, right? I still never stay home. We had a schedule, right? Monday was shopping. You could be home on Monday, and that was it. That is the only day we were actually home. Tuesdays were Rebel Adventures. Wednesdays were playgroups. Thursdays were another set of Rebel Adventures with whoever wanted to come. And Fridays were adventure days where the whole group would come. And that's the way we ran our lives for years. I ran my life like that. And it's funny because, you know, I adventured all the way to Kansas City, and not to get too boring, but all over the country we would go, all five of us. And now I get paid to write about those adventures, like locally. They want me to do more just by myself. And I'm like, I'm taking my kids. We're still going to do it that way.
Absolutely.
I want to get into your book a little bit. Mm-hmm. I've listened to it. I haven't read it. I hope that's not cheating in your mind. Okay. It is hard to take notes, though.
We don't care.
All right. But I guess I'd love, before we kind of get into some of the bits and pieces in it, can you talk a little bit about the process of writing the book? Like, I guess maybe where were you in your life when the inspiration struck that this is something that needs to get written down?
All right. So this is honesty hour. Yeah, I got mad. I got super mad. That's where it comes from. Because every time I went for help, there just wasn't any. There was a bunch of platitudes. You know, win one for the Gipper and tough it out and man up. That doesn't help me. What goes in my diaper bag? Do I have to call it a diaper bag? Where do I go? You know, what do I do if they throw a tantrum? How do I take care of my mental health when it's in the toilet? There at the time, and even now, there's just not enough information. There's not enough authentic connection between men to tell each other those things, to help each other, right? That is the origin of the book, right? It started off almost as a memoir of my funny stories and things I did. And the editor at Penguin was like, you should need to add advice. And I was like, how much? It's like all of it. And that's how the book took shape, because I was angry that I didn't have the advice. And so the guys coming after me, I wanted them to have the advice. And I'm still involved with the national groups and things like that. And I speak there to pass on some of those things because they support me as well. That is the impetus of the book. That's how it started.
One of the things that I appreciate about the book and just I think the work that you do in general is I was thinking back to when, and this is kind of Adam's heard me say this like 1,000 times, but when I think back to when I was about to become a dad, my wife is pregnant. And I'm given books from friends as gifts, and I find them in lists online, and I buy them and I read them. And so many of the books gave me really great information that I used for maybe the first 6 months. You know, I could swaddle the living shit out of my kids. And then before I knew it, they didn't need to be swaddled anymore, you know, and I'm thankful for the things that I learned in some of those books. But like, for instance, the topic of isolation, the things that are going to happen to you emotionally, mentally. Yeah. I just wasn't prepared for those things. And I didn't have the resources like early on. And one of the things that you say, I think you say it in the book. The first time I heard of you was actually on the program, The 1A. I heard you on an episode of that. And now I can't quite remember if you said this on that episode or if this is in your book, but you had a phrase that you said, which is separating the you from like the parenting. Yeah. And that was something that really jumped out at me, because that right there. And maybe you can kind of just unpack what you mean by that before I keep rambling on and on and on, but maybe you can unpack a little bit. Like, I mean, what you're getting at, like taking care of yourself, you're talking about taking care of yourself, but maybe you can unpack that idea of separating you from the parenting a little bit.
So, yeah. And in hearing you talk about that, you know, what do you do after they're out of swaddling? Part of my proposal to get the book published, I was really angry in it, but I was funny. And I think I had a line in there that says it's been scientifically proven that children last longer than 6 months. And that was my pitch, right? That you need to know everything after that, right? And the idea of separating you from the parenting So that goes back a long way within the National At Home Dad community, all of us who've come there, that you cannot take care of others until you take care of yourself. And then it comes from numerous people after that, therapists, for example, and doctors with Harvard degrees that I get to talk to. How do you separate yourself? And I've always had a very hard time doing that. And I had one guy who really kind of solidified it for me, is just imagine you're taking off one hat and putting on the other. So when I am parenting, that is the parenting time. But I have to make time for me, for you, that is separate from the children, that has nothing to do with the children. I don't even think about the children or my wife or anybody. And that's especially important early on, like in the middle of the days, because it's easy to get just overwhelmed with a baby or a toddler. And so I take off the parenting hat, I put on the me hat. And I asked another guy, a guy named Dr. Jetstone. He's a great resource for your dads, for men's mental health, specifically parents and fathers too. I asked him, I said, the version of men that we have in our head, the version that we promote outside of that, and the version of who we really are, right? This idea of you and all that. So what do we do when they don't line up and I can't find who I am? And he said, well, you're all three of those things, Shannon. He's a brilliant guy. And that just reinforced separating myself. And he said, you are who you need to be in that moment. Just make sure that you choose actively to be that man in that moment. It was great advice from him.
I'm curious, like you must have encountered people along the way who think like, boy, that's really nice that you can afford to stay at home and really look at your situation as a luxury. And I wonder, like, how do you address those type of people?
Well, they're not wrong in today's world. And I own it. I think that's the biggest thing with being a stay-at-home dad or a father. I think you have to own your role, right? Immediately. Own your privileges and explain them. What I do and what I've been able to do, it is a privilege. I have the luxury to stay home with my kids because my wife can provide a living. It has been hard at times. And we've had hardships. We've had financial hardships. I've had to hustle at times. And me and my wife, Todd's like, man, we'd be loaded if both of us worked. I mean, we've had that joke, but I wouldn't have the kids that I have and the relationship that I have with them. So I recognize the fact that it is a luxury for me. And most of us do. It doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean it's for everyone. I think that's something you got to realize. Not everyone could stay home with the kid, man or woman. You know, I think a lot of women are forced into the role and it's a mistake. And I think a lot of men don't get the opportunity to take on a more caregiving role. And I think that's a mistake. But yeah, I don't think they're wrong. But at the same time, I realized very early on that I had been given a unique and amazing opportunity and I was going to take advantage of it. And I think I did. I hope I did.
You mentioned like when setting off, kind of making the decision to be an at-home dad back in 2008, you said, something about there wasn't that many of us. You were talking about the groups, it's 2026, which is crazy to say out loud, but it's 2026. Do you feel like societally we are past the thinking that it's an odd thing for a man to choose to be a stay-at-home dad?
I really like this question because the answer is no. I don't think we're past it. We are still seen, and we have a term for it. We're seen as the unicorns. It's not as strange as it used to be. There's a lot more support and there's a lot more groups now. And so that's helpful. But in general, it's really hard to be taken seriously as a father in the parenting world. And that's from my personal experience. And both professionally and personally. The truth of it is, if you're a stay-at-home mom, grab my book. It will teach you everything I know, right? And everything that, there's 57 other dads in there. But I'm a man, and so they had to sell it as a hero, right? That's how men in parenting are sold, as this hero, right? I'm like, I don't want to be the hero. Well, I kind of do. Let's be honest there. Hero's cool, right? But, it's this idea that this just worked for him. And I'm like, no, I can tell you how to potty train. Right. And it may sound silly to you, but that's my experience. I'm telling you guys, a freaking tarp is the way to go with potty training. I don't know why that was so funny to people. I was like, no, I really did that. So even in the writing, though, it's really hard to be taken seriously at times, and opportunities have passed by. And I've even been at conferences where, they say, well, we're not going to talk about fatherhood advice because they don't really want any. And it's me and another father there. And I was like, yeah, we do. So
You know?
It's a work in progress, but I think the more we write about it, the more we change the story of fatherhood, because I think the truth of it is we're not the Homer Simpson dad, the incompetent, bumbling idiot. I think when fatherhood's done right, it's quiet, right? And it's not dramatic, and that's exactly what it should be. And I think there's more people like that than people give credit for.
So my daughters were born in 2014 and 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And like you, when your daughter was born, you know, when my kids were young, it was like drop them off at daycare at 7:45 in the morning, pick them up at 4:30 or 5. And I'm lucky if I get 90 minutes in total with them before they go to bed. And I remember feeling so guilty about that my girls were spending more time with other people who I barely know than they are with my wife and with me. Mm-hmm. And when the pandemic happened, it was awarded the flexibility to work from home. And as a result, I ended up spending a lot more time with my daughters. And, you know, that was one of the positives that came out of an otherwise like very dark and negative, time in our history. But all that to say, like, I think a lot of companies, a lot of businesses have modified their policies and extend their employees more flexibility when it comes to family time. And a lot more companies are offering paternal leave in addition to maternity leave and like all positive things. But do you feel like that trend will continue and eventually the stay-at-home dad will not be this sort of like, I don't know if taboo is the word, but not something that people look at and question and judge?
You know, boy, you hit the nail on the head of that. It's just a part of my writing nowadays. It's kind of where it's shifted a little bit. And for like example, in Sweden, there's no taboo around a stay-at-home dad, for example, right? The policies we have in America today, there are numerous organizations working for the, paid family leave. That's really what it comes down to, whether it's a maternity or paternity. And that's only one side of it, right? Then it's work from home and having the flexibility. That's the second side of that, where fathers are getting more time. And the third side of it, there needs to be a cultural change, because if you take paternity leave, most men are ashamed to take it or are afraid of negative consequences within their career. And there's some science to actually back that up. If you look at mothers, for example, when they have children, their initial salary increases go down, right? It's called the motherhood penalty. And the same thing happens for fathers. So you've got to change the cultural awareness of it and the acceptance of it. And again, we're not there yet, but there are good people fighting for it. And we're on the way. I think it's better than it's been in a very, very long time, but not where I would want to see it. I think, you talked about not getting time to spend with your daughters and the guilt that came with that. I think that's very common. And I think the solution to a lot of that is to let go of the guilt, like all of us have to. We're doing the best we can. But I think when I look at fathers, I look at consistency. Are you there? And it sounds simple, but we all know it's not. But consistency and showing up makes the biggest difference. Now we just got to make sure we give them time to do that. And that's what a lot of my writing is now. That's what my advocacy is.
It's funny. I used to never be like a negative person in it. And I was almost laughing to myself because it sounded like Adam was trying to get really think positively about the direction that we're going. And I was like, that's good. That's great. But then in the back of my mind, I was also like, yeah, but I don't know, because the thing that I was thinking about was how I was hearing these statistics. Again, might have been in that 1A, actually, because I just re-listened to it recently. But I think one of the guests was saying that women today spend essentially the same amount with their kids and being a caretaker with their kids and spending time with their kids that they did in the 1970s, though women are also out of the house working jobs a shit ton more than it was in the 1970s. And then at the same time, you have fathers who were, I'm not going to say like non-existent in the 1970s, but certainly like the notion of like being a consistent presence was not like as high on the list of priorities as it is today. And so that number has grown, right? Parents, dads spend something like 20%, like on average is 20% more time with kids than they have in the past. And yet dads also are spending more time away at work, like more time at like on the work. So it's like, in my mind, I'm thinking, we're spending more time with our kids. That's good. We're also spending more time away at work. That's not super great. And some of the negatives are we're losing our connection to communities. We're losing our friendships, and we're losing our sense of who we are. You know, if we're shaving the time away from other parts of our life, it's coming away from the you part. It's coming away from the friendship part. Yep. And it feels to me, it's like, man, what's the next like evolution of it? You know, where could we possibly go other than hopefully some sort of backswing of a pendulum, you know, maybe away from the importance of constantly working all the time in our society, you know, knowing, you know, like connecting ourselves so deeply, for instance, to the work that we do, as opposed to like who we are as people and as family members, you know? All right. End rant.
Well, no, I think it's a great rant. And you mentioned the people on 1A. So that was Jessica Gross of the New York Times and Bridget Schultz, who is her books and her think tank that she works for specifically are about this work-life balance. And she's looking at both men and women. And I had a meeting with them the other day because they want to tackle this same thought of how much time do we actually get to spend with our kids, and is it possible as men? But there's so many things in the way of it. The numbers of men doing more direct care are higher than they've ever been, but they are nowhere on par to where moms do. We'll get to the equity rather than equality. We usually call it equity, you know? And that's where I kind of put my hat in. That's where I want to be.
Yeah, I guess there's work to be done, and I think that you're one of the guys that's out there doing the work, which is, I think, amazing and wonderful. So maybe I am feeling
sometimes
positive.
It feels like I'm yelling in the void.
Have you? I've got to ask. So once your youngest is out of the house, what's your plan for filling your time? Is it going to be hobbies? Is it going to be comedy writing? Is it going to be going back to corporate life? You know,
I do have a plan because I've been through it kind of once before when my youngest was going to school. So it was a big changeover for me that I would have days to myself in the middle of the day. And so I basically spent 3 months in the woods here in Missouri, like some sort of hobo of just hiking every day and trying to figure things out. And I've always been a writer. And I thought, do I go back to APS in that world and, you know, leaving at midnight and 2 a.m? And my wife sat me down and, you know, I've been married to her for 25 years, but together for 30, right? I trust her. And she looked at me and she goes, so when are you going to write for real? Now, my wife likes to swear. So she said more words than that, but we'll keep it PG here. And that was the impetus. So when my last one goes, I will just keep on writing the way I do now. You know, the kids are part of my life and they're part of my writing. You know, it's funny. My daughter is studying creative writing in college. My son wants to be a forensic scientist, and and dude, that kid is like brilliant, smart. Like he got his, what they call their lab coat in high school. And it's a big award ceremony for his science grades. And I walked in and I realized I am the dumbest man in this room. And I was totally okay with it. So with my youngest, when he goes off to college, I will just keep writing. And you know, on those days where I'm feeling negative, we talked about that. That's why I write satire. Satire is the comedy of outrage. And I get all those feelings out because when I write about the fatherhood stuff, I have very specific rules. I don't go negative. I don't shame. And I give actionable advice, not platitudes. So I'll keep on doing that. I have another book on submission, about to have a third book on submission on a different thing. So yeah, that's where we're headed.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, thanks for doing the work that you do. Definitely would encourage our listeners to pick up The Ultimate Stay-at-Home Dad. Is there a place where you like to direct people to purchase the book?
Bookshop.org is always one of a favorite, but you can go, it's all over. You can go to Barnes & Noble and find it usually. I love it when you send me a picture and you do that. That kind of makes my day.
Oh,
but if you get anything from it, that is the biggest humbling moment. So yeah, with even all my writing, even the next book, which should be out next year sometime, when people connect with it, it's a very humbling experience. So yeah.
Listeners, go take a photo of yourself with Shannon's book, find it on the shelf, snap a photo and send it to him and make his day. You can learn more about Shannon at shannoncarpenterauthor.com. We'll put that link in the episode notes, and we'll be sure to link to any of your social media platforms as well, so that listeners can find you there. This has been totally delightful. I'm so glad that we know you now, and it was a really nice chat. So thank you so much for taking the time and for the awesome book.
And I thank you for having me, because these podcasts are extremely important to me for fathers. Like, I mean it. I know you guys put so much work and you have such good content where fathers can find connection. And we have to rewrite that story of fatherhood. And so things like Modern Dadhood, I love it. Please keep doing it. It's great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Hey, Mark.
What? Huh?
It never gets old. What do you think about doing a kisses and disses segment before we close this bad boy out?
I think we should do it. Have a kisses and disses ready to go?
There's a really positive review that came from Apple Podcasts, and I'm going to have you read that one.
I'm going to read it. I'm going to read the kiss, and then to keep us grounded, because we don't like to get too full of ourselves. We don't want our egos to get too big. We read a positive review, but to balance things in the universe, we then read a negative review. That's the diss. You're going to read that.
That's the diss. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is the kiss. Did you roll the
well,
theme?
Hold on.
Did you roll the theme music? Roll the theme music.
Kisses and disses. Disses are bad. Kisses are good. You can hear both in Modern Dadhood.
Here's the kiss. This comes to us from, I'm going to say, S3F. I think he wants to be pronounced Seth, but there's a 3 where the E should be. Seth.me. This comes to us from Seth.me with the headline, "Needed this show more than I thought." 5 stars. Thank you, Seth.me. He goes on to say, "I have a strong-willed 12-year-old son, and we're both ADHD. This show is just what I needed to get a handle on being a dad and knowing that I'm not at it alone." Wow.
That was nice.
That was really nice. And also, good on you, Seth, for fucking just rocking being a dad to a strong-willed 12-year-old. All right. I'm feeling really good about the nice thing that Seth.me said on the Apple review. Why don't you bring
a very
us back
nice
down?
review.
Bring us back down a few pegs.
You're not going to like this one.
I hope they don't call me out specifically on anything, but
you're not going to like
I'm bracing myself. Okay,
right, so this is from
straight.
Dad with Notes, okay? And Dad with Notes says, "If you've ever thought, wow, other dads are also confused, this podcast will over-deliver. Mark somehow sounds confident while actively discovering his own point, which is both impressive and deeply dad-coded. 1 star.
Only 1 star? For a guy who's discovering points as he's making them? I think that's at least 2 stars.
I think it's worthy of 2 stars, but look, I didn't write the review.
No, of course not.
Dad with Notes
Of course
did.
you didn't write the review.
Listen, that's kisses and disses, and I feel like we are totally balanced and equal now.
All is right within the universe, you see.
Listeners, if you'd like to be featured in Kisses and Disses, hopefully as a kiss, not a diss, go ahead and leave us a short review on Apple Podcasts, and maybe you'll be featured in a future Modern Dadhood episode.
Modern Dadhood cannot in good conscience guarantee the authenticity of negative reviews read aloud in the Kisses and Disses segment.
Mark, close this thing out for us.
This has been another edition of the Modern Dadhood podcast. Thanks for joining us. Well, I went right to the thanks. That's so weird. That's
okay. Continue on. It was fine. It was totally natural.
Thanks for joining us, guys, gals, pals. Where do we go from here? Don't forget. Well,
just tell them about social media.
I'm going to tell you about social media. You can find our show on all the platforms. We're on the Instagram. We're on the.
This sucks.
We're
man.
on the. Hold on.
Nobody's buying it.
We're on the Instagram. We're on the TikTok. We're on the YouTubes. You got to check us out there. Definitely go to moderndadhood.com where you can find a little bit of information about the show. You can see our beautiful faces there in the. By the way, gorgeous. By the way, absolutely gorgeous header graphic that you created with our beautiful faces at the Signal Awards, because let's not forget, this is an award-winning podcast. And you'll see that at moderndadhood.com along with our back catalog of all of our episodes. While you're there, you can purchase a Modern Dad hoodie or a t-shirt, which I recommend you do for your closest friend, which can be you. You can be your own best friend. You can also
flying off the shelf. Inventory's getting low.
Jesus, I didn't realize that. I have a whole stack in the back of my closet. All right. They also ship with a free sticker. Do we still have free stickers that are going out, or is that download too? Okay.
Oh
good.
yeah.
Okay, good. You can also reach out to us through the form at the bottom of the homepage, or you can write us an email at hey@moderndadhood.com. Would love to hear from you, whether you have something nice to say or not.
Thank you, as always, to Casper Baby Pants and to Spencer Albee for the music you hear in the podcast. Thank you to our new friend, Shannon Carpenter. Love that guy. Can't wait to stay connected with him. Mark, Andrew, check it. Please do your thing.
Thank you for listening.
Podcast. Just a modern.